you've captured the, the attention of people looking to buy a franchise, since you've awarded 60 since just August of 2023. So again, going back to our audience of folks that are emerging founders, that something like that kind of excites people of what's possible. And on the other side of the coin, it's also scary that there are many emerging franchisors that should definitely not award 60 locations in 6 months. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing, Dan, how did you guys know that you were ready to scale that quickly so early on in the process?
It really comes down to resources, right? So it's both intellectual resources and financial resources. So to all you potential emerging franchisors out there, it is very capital intensive to do it right. And if you try, and this is my own personal opinion,
Sure.
where you have to build out a team, systems, it's a whole support network, because if you try to bootstrap it, and again, companies have done that, but you're basically putting your initial franchisees, the folks that believe in you the most, that are arguably taking the most risk, they're the guinea pigs, right? They're going to work through all of the kinks. And that doesn't feel right to me, right? So we are investing heavily. And when I mean heavily, like well over 7 figures, right? So like when I see emerging franchisors say, I'm willing to put 50 grand to franchising, you're not ready, right?
No, right.
Like you're just not. And that's okay. We weren't ready either, right?
Sure.
So you have to either have the capital or have access to capital, and then really have a very robust network of support. Like we're structuring this entire business around supporting our franchisees. So, we work with the Rep 'em team and the Build 'em team, and they do all of our fran dev, and then they do real estate and construction team. So they will help white glove all of our franchisees from site selection to opening their doors. And anyone who's done that, especially in brick and mortar retail, it's complicated, right? And there's big dollars at stake, and there's huge mistakes that you can make. We know because we've made them when it comes to negotiating commercial leases and GC bid leveling and, permitting and health department and on and on and on and on it goes. So it's all about that support. And then we are aggressively building out our team, ahead of, we have 6 right now, and we don't even have a single unit open. And we have the entire Franworth team. So, we have probably a team of 15 to 20 people that their sole job is to support franchisees. And we don't have a single unit open yet, right? So when you think about, oh, how on earth would this take 7 figures? Like that's how, right? So I think both capital is a massive deal that people underestimate.
Right.
And then if you underestimate it and you run out of it, then everyone, franchisor, franchisees, everyone's in a very, very bad spot. And then intellectual capital, meaning, do you have people at the table that have the appropriate expertise to be able to support franchisees and help them through the process and everything that goes along with it? So that's, we've been very, very intentional. It kind of feels like an army of support that even for our first 3 stores, like you could argue is overkill, but it's not, right? Like we're playing the long game, and we're trying to do this the right way, but it is, to make no mistake, it is very, very expensive to do it right, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the huge advantage you have, you said it in so many words, is you have the bench strength that most franchisors starting out don't have. Yeah,
exactly. And that's kind of where, it is, there's a lot of different strategies and ways to do it. But yeah, like you said, if you're trying to bootstrap a franchise organization, definitely do not award 60 units in 6 months. You could go, you could dip your toe in the water, and there are different strategies, and it's certainly not binary, but do the work to understand what it means is my very strong recommendation. Because if you just hop in and throw a tab on your website and spend a little bit of money for an FDD, like that's not going to cut it.
No, that's not franchising responsibly, as we say.
Yeah.
What is the investment range, and how long does it take for build out?
Yeah, so our item 7 shows, it's about $460 on the low end in terms of pre-opening expense, all the way up to just shy of $700. So, a lot of variables in there based on market. Square footage is a really, really big one. So, that includes everything: working capital, franchise fee, et cetera. So that's the range that we'll operate in. And then in terms of timing, it's, I think 9 to 10 months from signing FA is about what we tell people. Now, a big variable in that is site selection. So anyone out there who's currently looking for commercial real estate can probably relate. some of these markets are pretty tight, right? And I tell everyone site selection is the one thing you cannot screw up, right? Like you can hire a bad GM or you can screw up the marketing campaign. Like you can fix all of that. But if you sign a 10, potentially 20-year lease in a bad spot, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So I practice urgency with action, but patience with decisions when it comes to site selection to our franchisees. So most of our franchisees, they're in site selection right now, and it's a roller coaster, right? Just like anything in real estate, you kind of fall in love with a space and it falls through, or the landlord ghosts you, or you name it. Or sometimes the sea just parts and you find that beautiful space right away.
Right.
And then everyone else was like, how did you do that? But it really matters to get it right. So I am mindful not to put too much pressure on franchisees saying you have to find a spot right now, because we're in this for the long term. And if you zoom out in 5-10 years, we're going to be pretty happy that we waited an extra month and a half to find the better spot, right? So it's not quite that simple, but it is, if kind of the standard process from site selection to signing your lease to build out to working towards, opening is, 9 months is a decent rule of thumb, and we will have some that'll probably be a little bit under that, and some will for sure be longer than that.
Sure. Would you say is some of the criteria as an ideal location?
Yeah. So the good news is, a lot of people like milkshakes. So, in Pittsburgh, we have, urban stores downtown. We have suburban stores. We have a store at the University of Pittsburgh, adjacent to their college campus. So people always say, who's your target consumer? I'm like, well, which store is it? So, families, elderly people, college kids, like we do well everywhere, which is awesome, where a lot of brands have it's females age 35 to 49, and that can work too. But thankfully that's not us. So, answer is it depends, but we do pretty well in affluent suburbs. We are a premium brand. We are not the cheapest milkshake out there. We are the best milkshake out there, but, in certain, lower income areas is probably not the best spot for us. And for us, it's really about kind of where the action is, right? Where the spot of the community is. We love restaurant co-tenancy for obvious reasons. We love being close to colleges or the big high school, movie theaters, sports fields, outdoor malls, wherever people are, because we're partly a destination where people will go out of their way, put the family in the car and come to Milkshake Factory. But people will also kind of, be at that center where stuff is and see the Milkshake Factory and come in. So, we always joke that there's a Capitol Grill across the street from our downtown Pittsburgh location, and they don't sell any dessert. So everyone comes across to the street to us. So, we're friends with them. It's okay. But you've
killed their cheesecake sales over at Capitol Grill.
Have. They still do okay.
And the creme brulee.
Yeah. So, we give them some free shakes. It's fine. But it does. There is no such thing as a perfect location, but the name Milkshake Factory works incredibly hard for us. So I wear this jacket that says Milkshake Factory on it. I mean, literally, I was in the Apple store yesterday. I had a crowd of like 4 or 5 people around me asking, what is that? And they were just so excited, which is kind of funny in a way, right? It's so ridiculous. But there's something about the name Milkshake Factory that I don't know if there's like a nostalgia to it.
Yeah, it does. It feels that way.
I can't quite articulate it, and it's different for everybody, but there's something to it, I promise you. Even when people have never heard of the name Milkshake Factory, like I can promise you, we could come into your market and put up a sign, and a big exterior sign or big coming soon graphics that says coming soon Milkshake Factory. And people would be really excited because and they say, well, when's that milkshake place opening? Right. And so, even just point being, high visibility does well for us because people in a half a second know exactly what we sell. And then what we sell is pretty fun and interesting to most people. So we just want to make sure, as long as we get on people's radar, we usually do pretty well.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its hosts do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.